Mafioso demeanor in hip-hop has been around ever since the 90s, with bump the lamp artists such as Nas and Jay-Z pushing the envelopes with albums such as It Was Written and Reasonable Doubt, weaving gangsters, noir, suit and tie, mob narrative to their work, and most importantly to their iconic East Coast sound. But not long after that, these type of hip-hop will gain another iconic landmark and player within their New York East Coast sound. The 90s have churned out a lot of golden, A-list, fantastic albums that is truly noted in the hip-hop history books. And the Wu-Tang Clan is the center of this massive boom, breaking numbers in record sales, accolades, and mostly influence. And one of the members of this very large but critically acclaimed group or clan would eventually release his very own solo album. And I am talking about Raekwon and his album Only Built for Cuban Linx. Only Built for Cuban Linx was released on August 1st, 1995, and it just recently celebrated its 25th anniversary. And similarly to the plethora of solo albums that would be released by these members, it was produced entirely by the so-called de facto leader of the clan, RZA. As I mentioned before in my Return to the 36 Chambers review, the ODB album, RZA in the 90s was in a creative binge, was on a creative high note, but he's producing it in unique, different, forward-thinking sounds that fits with these artists. Only Built for Cuban Linx is no different. It's a lot more darker, a lot more noir, and it really highlights the whole cinematic feel of it. An interview with XXL, RZA talks about the whole concept and aesthetic of this album. The theme of the album is two guys that had enough of the negative life and was ready to move on, but had one more sting to pull off. They're tired of doing what they're doing, but they're trying to make this last $250,000. That's a lot of money in the streets. We're gonna retire and see our grandbabies and get our lives together. This album is also known as the Purple Tape, aptly named because the cassette tape version or the cassette tape pressing have the mentioned color. And the album was previously supposed to be called, I'm just gonna put it right here, I don't want to say that, to mirror the hardcore and raw lifestyle these mobsters emit, but eventually changing it to the album that we all know and love. And Raekwon saw to fit to name this album Only Built for Cuban Linx after the jewelry because of how hard and how tough it is, mirroring that of the gritty lifestyle. These elements, breadcrumbs, and details will be the total package for artists down the line to take inspiration from and pave their own way for their own dark, drug-infused, mobsters, mafioso type of rap. And some of the artists one would argue are the Griselda Boys or Pusha T and hell even Rock Marciano, which by Pusha T's 2018 album Daytona, he actually pressed a cassette tape version of it with a purple tape. I mean, on the track On the Games We Play, he literally said, "This is my purple tape." Now let's talk about production side of things first. In terms of the skeleton of it, RZA is pulling the same strings as usual, getting samples from 70s and 80s R&B and soul artists, but as well with the iconic Wu-Tang samples from Kung Fu movies. In this case is Shaolin vs. Lama, but he also put in an Asian cop flick from John Woo titled The Killer. And specifically for this album, since we are talking about mobsters, mafias, and gangs, he sought to fit to get samples from mafia movies as well, like Scarface. But the familiarity of it is where RZA, I think, shines, in that he's so familiar with these type of sounds that he can experiment with it and stretch it as much as possible. And as I mentioned before, this album's supposed to feel cinematic. It feels like a movie. That definitely mirrors it from the instrumentals here, from the wailing strings on Knowledge God or Rainy Days, or the demonic yet quiet gangster talk on Wu Gambinos. But going back to the whole feel of the album, it really does feel like Raekwon and Ghostface is taking care of business with their fedora hats, black suits, dark shades, and armed weapons. And the track Knuckleheads sets off this album perfectly, with mobsters Raekwon and Ghostface killing, swerving, looting, robbing, showing these knuckleheads who want respect who the true crime lords of New York. I really love the juxtaposition of delivery from Raekwon and Ghostface. Raekwon is a lot more lowbrow and you really feel he's like the Don of the mobster, while Ghostface is a lot more aggressive, a lot more animalistic. It feels like he would kill anybody for no reason. And You Got blends in with this track perfectly, acting as a sort of narrator to warn you. These microphone professionals, sensational, fully operational, I got people here to play with you. You know the steez. You know my whole program, brothers from the no-lands. All we want is the G's, guns, and grams. And this tone of dark, mafioso, braggadocio carries through on tracks like Guillotine Sword, Incarcerated Scarfaces, and Criminology. This track is the second single after the track Heaven and Hell. The iconic ringing keys, dense drums, and booming brass sample is absolutely pummeling. Raekwon and Ghostface is trying to out-rap each other in their mafioso demeanor. Yo, first of all, son, peep the arson. Many brothers I be sparking and busting mad light inside the dark. Call me Doe Snatcher, just the brother from the rapture. I hang glide holding on strong, hard to capture. In my opinion, Ghostface won the battle on this track, but on the track after that, Incarcerated Scarfaces, Raekwon came out blazing with his Tommy gun. Line after line after line after line, it feels like you're being shot at relentlessly and you have so many bullet holes. Poisonous thing which thumps up and act chumps. Raise a heavy generator, but yo, guess who's the black trump? I move rhymes like retail, make sure shit sell. From where we at to my man cell. From staircase to stage, minimum wage, but soon to get an article in Rap Page. This braggadocio aesthetic, the mafioso theme, carries on the posse cuts here. On tracks like Wu Gambino's, Glaciers of Ice, Verbal Intercourse, which we will get into later, and Guillotine Swords. Raekwon, Ghostface, Inspector Deck, and Jizza is pulling out their own unique lyrical microphone weapon and style that is just so brutal, you would mistake it for an organized massacre. And can I just say, Jizza's verse on this track is one of the reasons why he's my favorite Wu-Tang member. Producing data, microchips of software, underground and off-air, the land of the lost, notorious henchmen from the north, striking people where the Mason-Dixon line cross. And another thing that is unique about this album, this is one of the first instances that we are introduced to a new member, a new affiliate, Capadonna, and he shows up on tracks Ice Water and Ice Cream. Now back to Built for Cuban Linx, they are really laser focused on the themes of mafia and mobsters, but not only on the brutal lifestyle, but as well as the sad after effects of it. They are not afraid to reflect on the dangers of their lifestyle. And this shows on the track like Can It All Be So Simple, the remix, and Rainy Days. And can I just say, I actually prefer the remix version over the original one of Can It All Be So Simple. Because I think personally the instrumental is a lot more layered and a lot more polished and a lot more finesse. RZA did a really good job here. On Rainy Days, the feature Blue Raspberry does a fantastic job portraying the clingy, significant other wailing and feeling sad and defeated over seeing her lover being consumed by the mobster and drug dealing lifestyle. And on the instrumental side, the looping synths, the very harsh pianos, and the detailed rainfall sounds is absolutely cinematic. And after a couple of tracks, we would get the skit Shark Biters, which I think is the go-to ethos for hip-hop up until today. Though in my opinion it does break up and break away from the mafioso and mobster narrative for a bit. It has a very clear, poignant, direct, and most importantly paramount message to rappers in that it is forbidden, it's a sin to copy. Be original. And though only subliminally, Ray and Ghostface pokes fun at Biggie for copying the Baby album aesthetic from Nas's Illmatic on his album Ready to Die, which he promptly addresses on the track Kick in the Door from his Life After Death album. Now let's talk about the massive elephant in the room, Verbal Intercourse featuring Nasir Jones himself, aka Nas. During this time, Wu-Tang Clan wasn't really collaborating or interacting with people outside of their affiliates and members. So this was a hell of a big deal. And when the first time I saw the name on the track list, I was absolutely floored, surprised, I was shocked. RZA provides a very simplistic but melodic instrumental from the sample of the emotions. If you think it, you might as well do it. Raekwon, Ghostface, Nas really narrates the grim imagery of drug dealing, violence, corrupted cops, and very dark neighborhood, trying to one-up each other who can write the most vivid storytelling piece. Nas is effortlessly smooth. It feels like he's flowing through the beat like water. Rooster Head's profile on the bus to Rikers Isle, holding weed inside their pussy with their minds on the pretty things in life. Props is a true thug's wife. It's like a cycle. People come home, some will go in. Do a bullet, come back, do the same shit again. From the womb to the tomb, presume the unpredictable. Guns salute life rapidly, that's the ritual. Raekwon and Ghostface is nowhere near far behind. In the building they are building, like little children staring. Them older folks ain't caring. Sirens circling. Fiends are lurking in your baggage. Oh, one's gone now. What? Smack him in his cabbage. This is easily one of my favorite Wu-Tang Clan tracks of all time. It's so smooth. It's so competitive. It's so effortless. It's just so exciting to listen to. Spot Rushers is another vivid storytelling tracks as well, narrating about a mob boss drug dealer, which in this case is Raekwon, killing an out-of-town dealer who is crossing territories. And the instrumental by Reza here is absolutely spot on and fantastic. I especially love the heavy and very clearly enunciated pianos here. And although this album is laced with a lot of serious, dark, very ghetto narrative, it's not with its fair share of comedy or at least interesting and funny backstories. I love the playfulness of the background story of the track Glaciers of Ice. Reza is talking about the intro skit of the tracks where in the narrative Ghostface is bragging about how he is dyeing Clark's shoes. Reza has this to say: the Clark skit is totally how Ghost is. He recorded the skit, I think we was in the car, I had a portable DAT, I made everybody get one cause no telling where we gonna be at when an idea hits. Put under your bed with your bitch, whatever. Or other tracks like Wisdom Body or the very iconic Ice Cream with Capadonna, Ghostface, and Method Man, talking about them eyeballing and lusting over a female, but in a tasteful and comedic way. The hook on Ice Cream by Method Man is still fantastic. It's catchy as hell. I think Method Man to me is one of the king of hooks. The track North Star is the cinematic sin of this album absolutely deserved. Reminiscing Raekwon's past as a kid growing up in New York, now leaving this very dark and ghetto city through conversations with Papa Wu. The instrumental is beautifully put together. It's as if there's like a credit screen rolling as he's driving off into the sunset. Now, I do have to say, although this album is supposed to be played and it's supposed to feel like a concept cinematic album, I don't get that as much as some people. I get chunks of it. I get little bite-sized pieces of the whole concept of these two mobsters trying to do their last action, their last drug dealings, their last $250,000 before leaving the city for good. But I don't get a cohesive feel as much as some people, which is admittedly a bit disappointing considering how they market this album. Starring Raekwon, guest starring Ghostface Killah, directed by Reza. And I just noticed this after reading the lyrics again and again and again. There is a lot of, at least to Genius's knowledge, Nation of Islam and 5%er ideologies here. In almost every track, there is a reference to one of their beliefs or one of their ideologies, which is appropriate considering Raekwon and Ghostface, to my knowledge, is part of that. And another negative thought I have about this album is that it is very, very chunky. It clocks in around 1 hour and 13 minutes. I personally think some of the tracks here could be cut, allowing it for a more tighter and more direct album. Even Reza said that he don't usually do 18 tracks album like these. He usually like to keep it tight as much as 13 tracks. But again, it's still an iconic and great album. So regarding the impact, as I mentioned before, artists down the line really gravitates towards this particular album for their mafioso drug dealing rap. I mean, the Griselda people as well as Pusha T, as I mentioned before, and not to mention the gargantuan impact it had on brands like Clark's and Cristal. It's an interesting case study in itself of how hip-hop or any forms of art, how that can break barriers not only in music, its art form, and how it influences the future generation, but as well as other industries, especially on the aspect of lifestyle. So that's it for my review of Only Built for Cuban Linx 25th anniversary. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to follow my Instagram account at WhatTheRobotThinks for more content. And I'll see you guys soon. Stay safe.